I go to you, the money man. How much money have you raised in a lifetime now? Are you counting?
Well, over the last decade, I think at our last count, we probably, across all the 120 companies we've worked with, we've raised about $1.3 billion.
$1.3 billion.
It's not a lot of money, in short.
You think so?
No.
Maybe to Orlando is not a lot of money, yeah?
Yeah, definitely not. They buy companies at launch for that much.
I would say nothing.
All right, you are a seasoned investor. You are an ecosystem builder. Can you share what you found to be the investor appetite for the mobility sector? What's the appetite like? Are you witnessing hesitancy or there's opportunity?
So I think it's important to clarify what investors' appetite is for, and that's primarily for yield, right? Investors are yield hungry. Everybody's a bit nervous about the only asset producing yield being Treasury.
Treasury, yeah.
Because everybody knows that comes at the cost of inflation. Government's printing money to give you that yield. So it's not real. It's financial engineering. So everybody's looking at what kind of yield can come from engaged capital, i.e. capital that goes into real demand from people.
Yeah.
And one of the most fundamental demands people have is the ability to move both themselves and things. That's like, there's no way, for us to get here, we had to get in a car.
That's right.
And money had to be spent. Whether you spent it last night with your driver queuing at the fuel station, or you spent it this morning on your way doing so, or you will spend it afterwards refilling your tank, you will pay to
spend
move.
money.
And so thinking about it from that perspective, there's always investor appetite for investing in mobility. The question is, who is creating the products? And I find that investors get blamed easily because everybody looks at them as a replacement for government. But I mean, investor's job is to return capital to those who own it, which is typically not him. And so what he ultimately cares about is his ability to generate a yield, a return to his investors. There is an opportunity to do that in mobility. So that's what I prefer to focus on, rather than focus on investor appetite, because investor appetite is a flaky thing. Wherever there's money, investors will have appetite.
Okay. Wherever there's money.
Yes.
And so is there money in the mobility? Have you found
There's a lot of money in mobility. And I'll explain why I say that. I think, well, one of the companies that people don't talk about a lot that I had a privilege of being part of very early is a very tiny company called Move, MOOVE. And that business started here in Lagos and started with a bold act of government to reform the mobility sector by putting in place the Lagos rideshare law. And that rideshare law gave birth to companies like Move. It, for the first time, sort of created a license category for asset owners in the mobility space ever since taxis, which were the last time they ever did.
Yeah.
So recognizing the evolution that transportation was undergoing, they passed a law that made it legitimate for people, private individuals, to invest in car transportation outside of what the government and particular associations could do. And Move rode on that wave, right? So every time you get into a Suzuki, you're getting into a Move vehicle. We've got 3,000 of those vehicles all over Lagos specifically.
Okay.
We're not outside of Lagos. That portfolio probably represents something around $20 million and generates a yield that pays investors every day.
Daily.
Right? Because every time you get into an Uber, an Uber-powered Suzuki by Move, you pay your fare, and then that fare chews up every week, and investors get their money, the driver gets his money, the mechanic gets his money, the fuel gets his, the petrol attendant gets his money, and that's how this entire value chain has been created.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did that because I look at Move as a practice for what the broader ecosystem could look like if it's properly structured.
Okay.
And what that means is that when you look at the electric mobility, I'm not environmentalist. So I don't particularly care about mandates or clean energy.
You're sitting down beside one.
Yeah, it's good. I like them. I just look at everything from cost and yield perspective.
Okay, now.
And when you look at it from a cost and yield perspective, what it really boils down to is three simple arguments. Number one, from a maintenance cost perspective, electric cars are cheaper. One asset has 2,000 parts to maintain, the other has 20, right? Number two, from a cost to operate perspective, electric cars are cheaper. One is simply the cost of electricity. The other is a non-renewable resource that has to be burned, quite literally, right? For it to generate energy, while the other is really an asset cost of batteries, right? That can be charged by electricity. And then the third thing is just generally, the overall cost and scale and growth of this industry. The reality is, with the scale at which China is producing electric vehicles, they will be cheaper than ICE vehicles in 3 years or 4 years.
Not even up to 10 years, eh?
I don't think so. The reality is just that we're already looking at a situation where there are ICE vehicles that are more expensive than electric vehicles today.
Wow.
Once you eliminate the cost of batteries.
Wow.
Right? So it's only a matter of time before the rest is the case. So just from a yield perspective, which is all I really care about.
Okay. We're happy you care about it.
Electric vehicles are already the better investment.
Okay.
So what does that mean for investors? I mean, what it means for investors is they want to see products across the value chain. They want to see products in the charging infrastructure. They want to see products in the battery value chain, the battery manufacturing. Ultimately, we want to see them manufactured here. But even if all we're doing is taking battery cells, binding them, and then putting on a battery management system, we're good with that. We want to see investment in the assembly of electric vehicles. We want to see investments in the mobility, the electric-powered mobility infrastructure all through. And all of that are opportunities to turn this to products that can be brought to the market. And one of the really amazing things that really excites me personally is that, with the revised ISA, we've now created a market for asset-backed securities, tokenized asset-backed securities with the digital exchanges, with the recognition of collateralization, with the upgrade of the standards to IOSO, with the permission of free trade zones as custodians of capital.
Yes.
So basically, all the elements are there to build an incredible business for us in the capital markets. And we're just waiting for people to move with boldness to create the products. And once we get the products, we'll move.
But the question is the capital. How do we attract it? How do we strategically attract it? There are ideas on the ground, but how do we attract it? Some people don't even have the equity you're talking about. All they have as capital is intellectual. They don't even have the financial capital. And they come to you. How do we do this?
So I think there's a lot of our experience when we talk to entrepreneurs. And I would say one of the reasons why we like working with Zeno is they've been an exception in this regard. Is a lot of entrepreneurs come to us with loaded costs. So somebody comes to us and says, we're trying to buy an EV for $40,000. Like, come on. We know the prices in China. We are in China. Our Move, we probably get every single major car distributor in the world talking to us. So we know what the prices are. So when you come with a short-term mindset, you're not willing to work together with us at the same baseline so you can build out a powerful asset base and draw yield with us. Once we're not aligned, it doesn't matter what you're bringing to the table, right? Because we just know from the moment you share your pricing with us that this guy is just here to milk a short-term opportunity. They're not thinking about a long-term opportunity. And so we know not to have a conversation with that person. Of course, there are gullible investors, but very quickly, once their hands get burnt, they're not coming back. So that, I feel like, is a priori thing. The second thing is really thinking deeply about how you can continue to lower costs in the value chain. Look, I hear Uncle on the,
Culture speaking.
It's culture speaking. I hear him on the carbon capture technologies and all of that. But look, the law of the streets where I come from is Oda. So Where's the money? I don't think anybody cares about emissions. I definitely don't, right? If the world is going to hell in a handbasket, the least of my problems will be the cost. There's a lot more richer people that have to worry about that, so they can deal in their comfort. I think what it will boil down to is, what is the cost of owning this asset? What's the cost of operating this asset? And how much profit can I make from doing so? The lower the cost of owning and operating the asset, the more profit I can make. And the less I can charge. The less I can charge, the more people can participate. And that's the math that makes the whole thing work. So we got to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to cost. We can't get greedy. We have to be thinking about scale. We have to be thinking about margins. Your margin is somebody else's opportunity.
That's right.
So every time you load on a $20,000 car and ask me to buy it, I know you're going to be out of business in a year because there are people who are currently trying to produce cars at 5,000. And the moment they get here, your business is over.
The economic power of the movers or users or riders is not being considered in this conversation. With all of these investments, how do you help the riders?
I think I am. I mean, the reality is, if we're investing at scale and actually targeting lower cost of mobility, then that's precisely the point. So the entire business is designed around the economic power of the movers. That's the only reason why we're considering electric. I mean, look, from my own consideration, the only thing that matters is the economic cost of mobility to people, because people move to opportunity and people move things to places of opportunity. That's really what it is. Goods have to move from the north to the south. People have to move from their homes to jobs. Our job is to power that for as low cost as possible, because if we can take away that cost, we can reduce the cost of economic opportunity, which today is just too great for the vast majority of our population.
This participant is asking, how ready is public transportation poised to pivot to EVs?
That's a good question. I think the variable factor here is the scale of charging infrastructure and how well planned that charging infrastructure is and how reliable it is. I think all the other factors are fair. Perhaps the only other thing I would say is our ability to increase battery manufacturing in country. Because at the end of the day, your car is really just, an electric car is just a moving battery. So if we're able to increase our ability to manufacture those, then I think we're ready. The major, I think it will happen in phases, right? I think we sometimes expect transformation to happen all at once, and that can be a problem. And the way I think it will happen is, first of all, I mean, largely speaking, from Ozumba all the way to, Lekki, to Ajah, maybe past Ajah, maybe you're going all the way to maybe Ekpe or Ibeju-Lekki. You have one estate after the other. And what I expect will happen is, first of all, you're going to get mopeds and three-wheelers in those estates, bringing you to main arteries. What I expect is now the traffic that comes to main arteries will split into two. Half will go with the big buses, and the other half will go with the taxis, depending on what kind of experience they're looking for, and whether they want to break their journey into a second mile journey or a last mile journey. So from that perspective, I expect the taxis to go next. I'm always skeptical of government. One of these I like to say about government is an idol. Doesn't hear, doesn't speak, doesn't talk, doesn't. All right. You know? But everybody prays to it. So I don't believe in government much. So I'm not sure that the public transit element would largely depend on government. But I would say what I expect to see are like private alternatives for specific journeys. So for example, if you're a private company like Shuttlers, you're probably thinking about electric buses already. Yeah. And thinking, okay, at least I can move people from Iyinoluwa to Oniru every day. And maybe you're not picking up passengers along the road, but you have maybe scheduled stops along the line. So I think I'm very interested in seeing how a lot of the folks who want to be in charging infrastructure are practically thinking about how to plan that out, and how they're thinking about incentives for their hosts, how they're thinking about powering those charging stations. For us as investors, we're very invested in the entire value chain. And we're investors with a reputation for transforming value chains very fast. Whether it was at Adela, we invented remote work, quite literally, before COVID. A Flutter Wave, we invented essentially being able to pay with any payment method, and the merchant being able to receive value where they need it. With Move, we grew ride sharing to a 1,000 car enterprise asset class. So I'm sure that when we get into the electric mobility market, we'll do the same thing, and then everybody will wonder what they were looking at when they were just talking about it.
And you were moving.
And we were moving.
All right. So do you think there is an opportunity outside Lagos?
That
will satisfy the appetite of your investors.
Yeah, there is opportunity outside Lagos, but I always like to remind everybody that we're in the business of scale. There's trillions of dollars of assets in this world, not enough places to deploy capital to. So much yield, even in this country. Trillions of naira of yield sitting with a badly behaved federal government. And my life's mission is to make sure they get less and less of it every day. So for me, I would say Lagos represents the kind of scale that investors are excited about. Productive use cases in other states requires a bit more investment in infrastructure. Interstates is an interesting opportunity, but largely for moving things and not people. And I just want to be realistic about what the kind of scale looks like. I mean, I'm not going to wake up in the morning for a transaction less than 250 million naira, So that limits my ability to invest to...
What span of time is that?
Well, I just can't write a check lower than that.
250 million.
I just can't, It's just like impossible for me to fathom. Except I'm writing it out of my own goodwill, So very few states can absorb that kind of capital in their mobility space. Probably like 5 cities in Nigeria that can. So, and that's me, small me.
Yeah.
How much more Wando, right?
Yeah. So 160 buses. So they're about to dump
$1 million depot, So I don't know where else you can do. I just like to be factual. It doesn't make me I'm sure everybody's feeling insulted that's not from Lagos, including my friend from Akure.
I don't
Fantastic place, but I don't know if I'll be going to Akure to invest in mobility anytime soon.
So there's work for government, there is work for government because, again, you want to ask yourself, Demola, maybe you help us here. You want to ask yourself, who then will trigger what will stir the appetite or the movement of the investor into that kind of region?
No, but here's can I
Yes,
push? Can I push more here? Look, societies are designed to move one of two things: people or things, right? Lagos is a talent city, so this is where the vast majority of people who earn above 350,000 naira a month live in Lagos, period. I mean, that's just reality.
Yeah, true.
And we're talking by a large number. We're talking like 90% of people who earn above 350,000 naira a month live in Lagos, right? Versus the rest of the country. So when you talk about, but the reality is all the things that they need come from elsewhere, right? There's nowhere to plant onions in Lagos or tomatoes or whatever. So if I'm a state government, I'm not going to waste my time trying to
Move people.
So you're just wasting your time, right? I would be building, truck depots to get my goods to Lagos. I'll be building electric rail to get my goods to Lagos, where the market is. Unfortunately, everybody likes to pretend because of federal allocation that all fingers are equal. Lagos is the economy. Everybody else is an addition to the economy.
Wow.
And they should serve the economy.
Shots fired.
So that's it. Like Lagos is a $235 billion economy in a country with a $350 billion GDP. Like, stop wasting your time. Stop wasting your time. Lagos's IGR alone will serve the rest of the federation.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's like we waste a lot of time debating things that are silly on the basis of pride, silly pride and inanities, when we should just focus on the numbers.
All right.
So there's no market outside of Lagos, is my point.
Someone is asking, and I think this is from Eve, should Nigeria be burning scarce forex? Are we burning forex?
So my mindset is we need to be more strategic about answering that question, because I do find that sometimes the forex argument leads you down a path where you actually end up burning more forex than you generate. And it's a productivity question, right? Should you, every time you bring fuel in, even from Dangote, you are paying dollars for it. Don't buy the lie that people are trying to tell you that there is local fuel and there's non-local fuel. Everything is priced in dollars, even when they claim it's in Naira, right? That $20 billion infrastructure that Dangote has wasn't built in Naira. Okay?
The capital was,
it was built in dollars.
Forex, yeah.
Now, there's a real conversation to be had if we were serious about whether we should invest $20 billion, including a lot of the forex that we should have used to do other things, in a $20 billion refinery, or whether we should have just put $2 billion into a battery manufacturing plant. After all, the end game is the same. We're all just trying to get energy. Or maybe we should have invested, $3 billion of that in redoing the grid, right? So there's a lot of questions I have about the wiseness of some of these conversations about forex or non-forex, but I think the basis is kind of a silly basis, right? Because we don't make everything in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So the idea that because we're saving forex, which we never really are, right? We shouldn't make certain investments. I think it's a silly proposition. Okay. We should just focus on productivity.
Someone is asking, and I think this is from Eve, should Nigeria be burning scarce forex? Are we burning forex?
So my mindset is we need to be more strategic about answering that question, because I do find that sometimes the forex argument leads you down a path where you actually end up burning more forex than you generate. And it's a productivity question, right? Should you, every time you bring fuel in, even from Dangote, you are paying dollars for it. Don't buy the lie that people are trying to tell you that there is local fuel and there's non-local fuel. Everything is priced in dollars, even when they claim it's in Naira, right? That $20 billion infrastructure that Dangote has wasn't built in Naira. Okay?
The capital was,
it was built in dollars.
Forex, yeah.
Now, there's a real conversation to be had if we were serious about whether we should invest $20 billion, including a lot of the forex that we should have used to do other things, in a $20 billion refinery, or whether we should have just put $2 billion into a battery manufacturing plant. After all, the end game is the same. We're just trying to get energy. Or maybe we should have invested, 3 billion of that in redoing the grid, right? So there's a lot of questions I have about the wiseness of some of these conversations about forex or non-forex, but I think the basis is kind of a silly basis, right? Because we don't make everything in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So the idea that because we're saving forex, which we never really are, right? We shouldn't make certain investments. I think it's a silly proposition. Okay. We should just focus on productivity.
All right. 30 seconds. What kind of urban mobility future do you envisage for Nigeria?
For me, I think really it's about moving, designing our cities so that we are tactically moving people and things as required.
Yeah. Designing.
So for me, I think it's really about the design. So, I live in Yaba. My ultimate dream is for Yaba to be walkable and for us to only have 3-wheelers on the streets. I don't think we have 2 big transport depots, Yaba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, and we have the train station.
Yes,
I think that should be enough for everybody. Ultimately, anybody who has a car in Yaba should be paying extra, in my opinion. That's how I see the future.
Thank you. We're designing it.